All right, this one's for the ladies, specifically my fellow women who have reached midlife like myself and suddenly find themselves thinking, what is going on? Why am I doing all of this? Why am I still saying yes when I want to say no? Why am I managing everyone else's feelings like I've been personally appointed VP of emotional operations? And why, after decades of being agreeable, dependable, accommodating, responsible, and generally very good, am I suddenly so tired of it? Well, congratulations. You may have a good girl hangover too. Now, we already know that perimenopause and menopause can cause all kinds of havoc. Our hormones are changing, our bodies are changing, our sleep is changing, our moods can change. I mean, these are very real biological changes happening, right? So this is a big change, big season of our life. But I refuse to look at this entire chapter as something that has arrived simply to take us down. I like to imagine that nature is also tapping us on the shoulder and saying, ma'am, you have had entirely too much nice to drink. And it's time to sober up, because some of us have been drinking from the nice girl tap for decades. Would you like another round of, I don't know, putting everyone else first? Absolutely. Who wants a shot of apologizing for something that wasn't even their fault? Would you like to explain a reasonable boundary for 17 minutes? Absolutely. And eventually, we wake up with a hangover. But this hangover, I think we should actually celebrate it, because the headache is awareness. It's a message. The nausea is realizing how often we've been abandoning ourselves to keep everyone else comfortable. And sudden intolerance of things that you've tolerated for 20 or more years, that might actually be growth. We're waking up. And today we're going to figure out what we're waking up from, what the good girl actually did for us, okay, and how to recover without losing that kindness, generosity, empathy that made her beautiful in the first place. Because we're not trying to kill that good girl, we're just cutting her off. She has had enough. And using Oiaré, I'm going to show you how to recognize the architecture that kept this pattern going. Okay, return to the woman you actually want to be and start making choices from her instead. And the cure for the good girl hangover isn't to become selfish, it's to become conscious. So drink some metaphorical water, grab some metaphorical Advil. We're sobering up, ladies. All right. So first, let's talk about who this good girl actually is. Because I don't want to make her the villain here. She's probably lovely. She's helpful. She's thoughtful. She remembers birthdays. She checks whether everyone gets home safe. She brings something when she's invited somewhere. She probably has emergency snacks in her purse. We like her, right? The problem isn't that she isn't kind. The problem is what she may have learned kindness was for. And many of us learned some version of this very early. Okay? Be pleasant, be helpful, don't disappoint people, don't make things difficult, be responsible, keep everyone happy, don't be demanding, don't be too loud, don't be too much, and definitely, don't make anyone uncomfortable. So we become very good at reading the room. Sometimes better than we learn to read ourselves. What does everyone need? Is everyone okay? Did I upset anyone? Should I fix that? Should I say yes? Should I explain myself? Should I soften what I just said? Heck, even should I add an exclamation point or an emoji so nobody thinks I'm mad when I'm texting or emailing them? And underneath all of this can be a very powerful belief that being good keeps us safe, that being liked means we belong, that being useful gives us value. And this is where the good girl hangover becomes much more interesting than simply saying, I need better boundaries, because boundaries are a behavior. So Oiaré asks us to look underneath that behavior. What architecture created it? Okay. So in Oiaré, your architecture is everything operating underneath the surface of your life. Okay. Your beliefs, your conditioning, your emotional patterns, your habits, your assumptions, the meanings you learn to assign to things. And a lot of their architecture was built long before you were consciously choosing it. Maybe you learned that being easygoing got you approval. Maybe achievement got you attention. Maybe keeping that peace kept things calm. Maybe being needed made you feel valuable. Maybe saying no created too much tension, so you became someone who always said yes. And if that strategy worked, your brain learned something. Keep doing that. And that's why I don't want us looking back at our younger selves and saying, why did I let people walk all over me? Or why didn't I speak up? Or why did I care so much what everyone else thought? No. That woman was working with the architecture that she had. And some of those patterns probably saved her many times. They may have helped her build relationships, navigate difficult situations, become successful, care for people, create stability, belong. So we can actually thank her. Seriously, thank you, good girl. You got us here, but you don't necessarily get to drive anymore. We're taking your keys, because eventually something very interesting happens. That hangover, right? The strategy that used to make you feel safe starts making you feel trapped. You still know how to please everyone. You're just increasingly unwilling to do it at your own expense. You say yes and immediately think, why did I just say yes? You apologize and then you wonder, wait, what exactly am I apologizing for? I didn't do anything wrong. Someone is mildly disappointed in you, and instead of rearranging your entire life to fix it, a tiny voice appears and says, you know what? They'll be okay. They might actually survive this. So welcome to the hangover. And this is one of the possibilities I love about midlife. You have enough life behind you to finally see some of your patterns. There's a lot of data there. And you have enough life ahead of you to decide you don't want to spend the rest of it repeating them. And that is an incredible position to be in. Because eventually we start noticing that bill for some of the strategies that once protected us. And people pleasing has a bill. Every time you automatically abandon your preference so you can preserve someone else's comfort, you reinforce something, that their experience matters more than yours. And every time you silence yourself because someone might disapprove, again, you reinforce something, that your approval is safer than authenticity. And every time your entire body says no while your mouth says, sure, no problem, you move a little farther away from yourself. And eventually, that bill arrives. Sometimes it looks like resentment, exhaustion, anger, feeling invisible, health issues, not knowing what you actually want anymore, or simply thinking, I cannot keep doing my life this way. And this is the part I really want you to hear. That feeling does not necessarily mean your life is falling apart. It might mean you can finally see something that you couldn't see before. Your old architecture may no longer fit the woman you're becoming. That's the wake-up call. And that is worth celebrating. So how do we recover from this good girl hangover? And this is where we can use the Oiaré practice. And the 4 steps are elevate, observe, return, and choose. Okay, but if you're new to this, what does this mean? So the first step is elevate. Because imagine someone asks you to do something, you don't want to do it, you don't have time, you've already feeling overwhelmed, but before they're even finished the question, your mouth is actually preparing the words, sure, I'll do it. Because when the possibility of disappointing someone activates you, you may not be making a conscious decision anymore. You may be running an old pattern. You know, that old pattern might be, I need to fix this, I need to help, I need to apologize, I need to make them happy. So before you respond, create space, take a breath, wait before answering, go for a walk, say, let me get back to you. You're not trying to become perfectly calm. You're simply creating enough space between the trigger and your response that you can get back into the conversation. Then we observe. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Instead of immediately changing your behavior, just get curious about it. Ask, what just activated in me? Now, what triggered me? What am I afraid will happen if I say no? And maybe the answer is, well, they'll think I'm selfish, or they'll be disappointed in me. They won't like me, or they think I'm difficult. They'll be angry. So now we're underneath that behavior. Now we're looking at the architecture. And this is where you can start catching something very important. Sometimes what feels like kindness is actually fear wearing very good manners. That distinction can change everything, because kindness says, I want to do this for you. And people pleasing says, I'm afraid of what happens if I don't. And those things can look almost identical from the outside, but inside you, they feel completely different. One is generosity, and the other is self-protection. And once you can see that distinction, you have options. So next, the step is return. And this is where your inner compass comes in. Instead of asking, how do I keep everyone happy? You ask, who am I practicing becoming? Maybe she's compassionate, but she's also honest. Maybe she's generous, but she respects her own capacity. Maybe she loves deeply, but she doesn't abandon herself to prove it. Maybe she helps people because she genuinely wants to, not because she believes she has to earn her place in their lives. And maybe she can tolerate someone being disappointed in her without turning their disappointment into evidence that she's a bad person. Let that one sink in. That one is huge, because recovering from the good girl hangover requiring building a new tolerance, a tolerance for disapproval. Someone might misunderstand you. Someone might wish that you had said yes. Someone might think you should have done more. Someone might prefer that version of you who never had boundaries. And guess what? You can survive that. Their disappointment is not an emergency. Let me say that again. Someone else's disappointment is not your emergency. That doesn't mean we stop caring about people. Of course not. It means we stop treating every uncomfortable reaction as evidence that we have done something wrong. Okay? And finally, that leads us to choosing the choice that we have. And this is where the new architecture gets built, okay? Not through one dramatic declaration that from this day forward, I shall never people please again. Of course not, because you know you will, I know I will, probably by next week or even by end of this day I might. But the change happens through tiny choices. And you start practicing saying things like, let me think about that. Or, no, I can't take that on right now. Or, that doesn't work for me. Or, I actually prefer this, thank you. Or, I disagree. Or perhaps I need some time to think about it. Right? And perhaps the most advanced good girl recovery technique of all is simply just choosing no. Period. No 12-paragraph explanation why. Just a choice. And every time you make one of those choices, you are practicing a different relationship with yourself. You are teaching yourself that your preferences are allowed to exist. Your capacity matters. Your voice matters. You can disappoint someone and still be a good person. You can be kind without abandoning yourself. That is how architecture changes, one choice at a time. Okay, so I want to give you something incredibly simple to practice over the next few days. Let's make it for 1 week. For 1 week, just stop giving immediate yeses. That's it. You don't even have to start saying no. Just stop automatically saying yes. When someone asks something of you and you feel that reflexive yes coming, rising, right? Just pause and say, let me think about that. Then ask yourself 3 questions. 1, do I actually want to do this? 2, do I genuinely have the capacity to do this? And 3, if nobody were disappointed by my answer, what would I choose? And the third question actually reveals a lot, because for a moment, it removes the audience. And suddenly, you can hear yourself. Maybe the answer is still yes. Okay, wonderful. Now your yes actually means something. You know, it comes from a choice instead of fear. And maybe the answer is no. And that's useful information too, because you're learning how to hear yourself again. And that's very important. So this brings me to something I think is just really profound. Recovery does not mean becoming the opposite of who you were, though, okay? We don't need to swing from I'll do anything for everyone to I care about no one. No, that's not what we're going to do. There's no freedom in that. We're not trying to destroy the good girl, remember? We're just cutting her off. She has had enough nice because there are beautiful things about her. We want to keep her kindness. We want to keep her empathy. We want to keep her generosity, keep her thoughtfulness, keep her desire to help, keep the part of her that loves deeply. We're just removing the requirement for her to shrink and disappear in order to do all things for everyone else. Kindness without self-abandonment. Generosity without resentment. Love without constantly proving your worth, okay? Helping without needing to be needed. That is a very different way to live. So maybe that good girl hangover isn't something that needs to be feared. Maybe it deserves a little celebration, because you can finally see the bargain you may have been making. You know, instead of I will sacrifice pieces of myself in exchange for approval, safety, belonging, now gets renegotiated. Not by becoming cold, not by becoming selfish, not by caring less about other people, but by finally including yourself among the people whose feelings, needs, preferences, boundaries matter. And that's recovery. And maybe nature knew exactly what she was doing. Maybe somewhere in the wild season of changing our hormones, our bodies, and priorities, and changing perspectives, there's also that invitation for us to wake up. We've had enough nice, so let's drink some water, take that metaphorical Advil, and come back to ourselves. Because we don't need to destroy the woman who got us here. We want to thank her, we want to love her, we want to keep everything beautiful that she gave us. Then gently take her keys. She had enough of nice to drink. We're driving now. And elevate, observe, return, choose. And live by direction, not by reaction.